African countries to improve education. What are those countries and what have you done? What are some of your major projects, the challenges and opportunities?
Well, that's a broad question, but I will start by saying that, as you know, the beautiful continent of Africa and the countries are not monolithic. They are all different in their ways. I've worked in West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, Southern Africa, I would say. And what I have found basically is a newfound commitment to education among the various African countries that I've been in. Uh, the question remains whether those governments can continue their commitment to providing basic education and whether they can provide quality basic education. Almost without exception, most of the African countries now have a commitment to providing basic education, at least from grades or level 1 to maybe 9 across the continent. So, what I have done here recently, and the pandemic has created and shown a flaw in education here in America as well as in Africa. And what Vibranium attempts to do is to give a low cost solution to providing online education in countries that would accept that and be a part of that. Now, as you know, in almost all of the countries, the education system is a variety of providers. They're private, there's the states, there's the federal government. And what we have been most successful with is working with universities that would offer uh, second, primary and secondary education, and also church related schools. So, what I have been doing most recently is that trying to help schools cope with the pandemic through providing online education for students in those institutions. In the past, I have been involved with IBM and its involvement in Kenya, where they were trying to develop a capacity among the workforce to be able to work with IBM. In South Africa, I'm on the board of Madam Zuma's foundation in the area of diabetes education throughout out the country. We're presently working also again in Kenya with Uzima University there to partner with an American institution. Similarly, in Ghana, we're working with Knutsford University College and Virginia State. Morgan State is offering 3 degrees in the country of Ghana come this fall. So I have been involved with a variety of different places in the education sector to improve education. But I'm refreshed because what I see is that all of the leaders of the various countries in on the continent of Africa at least see education as a way of improving the economic and the quality of life of people. The real challenge is whether they will continue to work to improve and manage the conditions for teachers. The teachers there are not getting their pay. They're, they're not properly trained. It's just a variety of things that must be done within that sector. Uh, but again, I see a broad commitment to education throughout the continent of Africa, various levels, Of course, South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, and others seemingly are much further ahead than, say, Ghana or ECOWAS countries. Kenya is moving along quite well. Rwanda has taken uh, its lumps and has, under this leadership, done an excellent job. So I see overall an improvement, but there are challenges now.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lee. Trust me, you deserve the title or given to you, the chieftaincy, that you've been given among the Igbo. You truly African. I can tell you that. I can just make the following remark. You sincerely know Africa. You've been to more places than I have ever been able to travel to myself personally.
And look, I didn't mean to neglect your country.
Well, I'm coming to you with that question. So my question is, obviously, you've worked mostly in English-speaking Africa. And what about the Spanish, the Lusophone, the Francophone countries like mine, Benin? Did you see any similarities or differences in the education system across those countries you work in?
No, I don't see any differences. I would say across the continent of Africa, the Francophone countries seem to lag a little behind the English-speaking countries in terms of their development of the education delivery system. Having said that, Benin, as you know, I've gone into Benin, and with the International Model School there, I brought 5 learners out to go to Jarvis Christian College in America. All five were honor students. I mean, it was unbelievable how well prepared they were there. I have submitted a letter to the president of Equatorial Guinea asking at some point for an audience so that we might begin to get students out of the country of Equatorial Guinea. That's, as you know, Spanish. And so we will continue to work in Benin with the International Model School there. And hopefully we can move into working with the country of Equatorial Guinea. There seemed to be a climate for it. The explosion that occurred there has delayed our dialogue and conversations. So as soon as things maybe get back to normal as a result of the explosion, we will work more in Equatorial Guinea.
That's fantastic. Now, what would you say the strengths are of education or higher education in general in the parts of Africa you know best? What are some gaps to fill, if any, compared to education in the U.S.? I mean, you may have touched on it a little bit, but can you give us some specifics?
Okay, one of the things that I've seen, well, let me just say in America, of course, the higher education and the tertiary type of education is more aligned with employment opportunities. In none of the countries that I've worked in is there a concerted effort to train and educate people for the workforce. The systems are too separate. So at a macro level, that is something that needs to come together for improvement of the economies. I have sat in hotels and met students who have majored at universities in zoology. And I mean, it's no industry for it unless they're going to go into animal husbandry or something of that nature. So one of the strengths, I think, of the African countries that I've worked in are the people.
Right.
The people have a tremendous desire for self-improvement. What I would say in some instances is that the government have not taken advantage of that and help students to have a career path that was meaningful for the economy in that country. So what I have done when I've gone into a country to try to get students out, I try to select those who would, first of all, major in an area that the country might need and make sure to the extent possible that they go back home after training, which is a very important dimension of it.
I truly believe you've hit the nail on his head. And my next question, because we cannot just jump around it, is the COVID-19 pandemic. And you alluded to that, talking about, online training, online teaching and learning. So the COVID-19 pandemic has certainly changed the way all of us look at education or global education today. So what are some African countries doing that may help them adjust to what we're all calling the new normal? Do you think African governments or private citizens should or will continue funding study abroad programs?
Well, the consistent funding of educational improvement of any type is an issue within most of the African countries. In other words, they do not continue to support things in the few changes in administrations. They come up with new priorities. I do see that governments and churches, the Anglican Church or the Catholic Church or whomever, do embrace the use of technology in teaching and learning. The issue that we face is how do we provide those institutions the hardware and the equipment to be able to do that. We cannot afford a blackboard, as you know. So what we do is go to companies that are developed in developing countries and present them because their price points are similar to what the might be in a given African country. I do see that they're embracing it. Of course, the question becomes, just as in America, is the whole portion of internet services. But you got the cell phones. Everybody in Africa, everybody in sub-Saharan Africa countries got phones. So some of the instruction can be provided through that. Of course, it is not as well received as if it was on a laptop or a tablet. So the online education in these countries really tend to discriminate against the low-income people in the various countries. And we are sensitive to that and try to do whatever we can. And this whole pandemic has spawned some very innovative things that I've seen. I've seen where you got solar panels that can bring in the internet through satellite, as well as charge phones and laptops right there. So it's spawning a lot of innovation, and in time, it will benefit the continent.
Where have you seen the solar panels? I know as far as Benin is concerned, the northern part will have a lot of, sun energy places like Tangieta, so on and so forth. So what are those places in Africa?
Well, Kenya being one,
Oh,
South Africa, the innovation was created by a young African from South Africa who was an MIT graduate.
Interesting.
In addition to that, he has also developed sort of like a pod that he markets to restaurants and so forth for protection outside. They're heated and the whole yard. But after the show, I would be more than happy to give you his information. But he has done a great job in developing this concept. Now it's a little pricey, which makes it as not easily transferable as we would like to see it.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, thank you very much for, or saying you will share his contact with me, because those are the people we need, people like you, because you have a legacy. You have to prepare the younger generation. And this young South African is one of those people who will just jump into your footstep and carry on the legacy.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Lee Monroe, as Vice President for Academic Affairs at Vibranium, what does the future of international education look like?
Well, what I think it looks like is a transfer of know-how from developing countries into those countries that they can partner with. To give you an idea how Vibranium functions, we approached K-12, which is the top online high school of America. We approached Edison Learning. We approached, and I'm blanking on the names of others, and asked for a discount in their services. So what we do is then take that service, let's say to a university who can offer an online high school or schooling, and a person can get an American degree, high school degree, and also satisfy the needs, educational requirements of their country. So what we have tried to do, we realize the difference in the economies and price points and things of that nature. So what we have done is appeal to the goodwill of many countries, companies, in an attempt to transfer some of their services and know-how into various African countries. Now, the thing that's sort of a temporary thing. The real thing, my dear friend, is this. I think the leaders are committed to improving basic education in countries. The quality of it is an issue.
Right.
Because there are little or no standards throughout the curriculum. The teacher preparation is not sound. And you can't shut down schools for months when you're having elections. All those types of things. And then the states, the governments must continue to make education a priority. What you will find, I think, is the World Bank has just recently done a study and kind of put the African countries into different stages of development. And you will find that what I'm saying is basically the recommendations that they have come out with. And that's what is necessary. In Nigeria, well, let me just give an example. In Liberia, the Open Society Foundation, George Soros, through their London office, funded a 10-year effort to put in place an early childhood education system. The structure was put in place. However, the teachers who supposed to be on the payroll only show up for payday, not for work. So there are many systems that got to be put in place to make this stuff begin to change, and that's it's almost universal throughout the continent of Africa.
That's 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 interesting. When I say interesting, that's a challenge, and that challenge can be met. You refer to training consistently and quality training. Teachers got to be properly trained, and when we're training them, we should train them based on a curriculum that is maybe career oriented and that they are standard based, and that we actually assess those curricula, the courses, the program, and we assess our own performances as teachers. Will you agree?
I would agree 100%. The
Very
other
good.
thing that I think is very important is that each country needs to determine what it wants its students to learn.
Right.
And America has this system of what is called core curriculum. And all that meant the governors and the education advisors of each one of the governors and chief state school officers came together and said, here is what we want a high school graduate to be able to know coming out of Virginia, coming out of North Carolina. And they came up with this concept of a common core. A lot of people fought it
Yeah.
because it came out under Obama's administration. Now, I'm not suggesting that Africa tried that, but within each country, at least there ought to be a curriculum that you said must be taught.
That
Now,
that that is correct.
yeah, then you're talking about lesson plans that conform to that, regardless of whether you're teaching it in a private school, a proprietary setting, or a state institution. Then you have a commonality. And in the West Africa, you could tie it to what WECOWAS calls for.
Yeah.
But again, we need that. We must have it. And then you can hold teachers accountable for their performance or lack of performance along those lines.
You're touching on very important issues, and they're worth actually exploring, examining, and taking seriously. And for the French-speaking viewers who have tuned in, Dr. Monroe is talking about WAEC, which is West Africa, the West African countries in the Anglophone part. The WAEC is the West African Examination Council. I know it existed in Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, so on and so forth. He also mentioned K-12, and K-12 in the Anglophone system is actually a combination of the elementary, primary, and secondary education in the French-speaking countries. So the need to actually work in harmony and adjust those curricula and even the system will make us, working seamlessly so that we don't have hurdles and hoops to jump when we're doing, when transfer students are going from, say, Benin to Nigeria, from Nigeria to Ghana. And I'm sure Dr. Lee Monroe would agree. And this next question may sound redundant to you, but I'm going to pose it anyway. How are you helping, or can you help African American students or African students, schools and colleges adapt to new realities for global education?
Well, I think it's happening. What I see, and one of the things that working with colleges and universities kind of keep my perspective fresh for an old man. But I see that basically the concepts of Pan-Africanism are alive and among young people. Now, I would say that over my 50 years in higher education, I have taken over 100 students to the continent of Africa. I would say unequivocally, every one of them who go and come back are changed and have a firm commitment to continuing to reach out and to be a part of the growth and development of a given African country. I see an increase in the willingness of chancellors and presidents of HBCUs to do that. In your state of Virginia, Virginia State University is working to try to begin to offer a doctorate of educational leadership in the country of Ghana. Morgan State of Maryland will be offering 3 degree programs in the country of Ghana. Shaw University Divinity School will be offering a master's of religion and church management in Africa. We haven't decided which country we're going to work with. Lane College. You know of Hampton's involvement in the book program many years ago. I see FAMU, North Carolina A&T with the agricultural thing. So the commitment is there. And the thing that I feel so good about, you may have heard that in President Biden's comments, he said he was going to make it easier for students out of other countries to come to America and study. One of the problems we've had over the last 4 to 8 years have been dealing with the consulates in the American embassies, U.S. embassies, to get students out. So it's I think it's an opening up of America to students who want to come, learn, go back home, and to be a part of the growth and development of the country. I see an increase in that.
That's good. That's good indeed. But as you can tell, education is about funding. It's about money. Education is expensive, and most African countries are poor, but they're doing their best. Because it's not a destiny. It's not the African continent destined to be poor because we have all the wealth. We have the most priceless resources, and you said the human capital, right?
Yeah.
People complain about or money or funding all the time, and they say education, especially when it comes to higher education, it is very expensive. And somebody said, if you think education is expensive, wait till you get ignorance, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking along those lines. Yes, we would encourage African governments to invest in education, but they need to invest very wisely, smartly. They need to know what they actually want their citizens to focus on. And that's where they need to put the money. And they need to train the teachers at all levels, elementary, primary, secondary, and higher ed level. Because people may have a master's degree, that may have a PhD, but the PhD doesn't entitle you to, pedagogy at all. That you don't control pedagogy, so you got to learn. Okay, so a lot of people learn by trials and error, but I think there should be a more systematic way of helping university and college teachers to to get to embrace pedagogy and have full grasp of it through what I would call faculty development.
Yeah.
Okay, faculty development is very important, and also the online learning and teaching for international or global education is also a good solution because people don't have to travel all the way to
No.
America or
No.
from America to Uganda, so on and so forth. But there will be some programs. If, for example, you're doing research in anthropology, you can't do it, all online. If you're learning foreign languages, like African languages, you may have like, a year or two for total immersion. That would be very, very useful. What do you think?
Well, the infrastructure technically is there to carry out online education. It's a matter of changing perspectives and so forth. You are absolutely right. As I mentioned, I think each one of the presidents and the ministers of education have a commitment to improving basic education. I have not seen as much of an emphasis on the management and the development of teachers. Now, money is the basic issue. If I may share with you a personal experience, I served as the what you would roughly call the Minister of Education for the state of North Carolina. We knew that the first part of the general operating budget of the state of North Carolina was for education. And we fought to make sure that education got what it needed. Now, the teachers never thought we gave them enough money, but that's par for the course. I do not see the country commitment to funding. Too many of them rely on the donor funding of educational programs in their countries for support rather than putting it into their operating budget and keeping it as a priority. And so what you see is a kind of up and down pattern of growth of schooling in the various countries. I would point, though, to Kenya, and Uhuru Kenyatta seems to have done a pretty good job in trying to stabilize things, but of course, the pandemic created problems, and they have worked pretty closely with us there in Kenya to do some things on an experimental basis. So money is the issue, and a commitment to many of the problems would be eradicated. But one of the things, too, I would just say to you, my friend, is that the systems that are needed to undergird free, and I'm going to say compulsory education are not there. How do you require a child to go to school that you don't even know is born? You can't, he's not there. You have to rely on the parents. So you need systems in place to make sure that you know that this child is there, and then tie your funding to the children and not to a politician. And those take a lot of rethinking the process of the funding of schooling, but it's absolutely necessary. Per pupil expenditures are the issue. Now, in the country of Nigeria, they give the money to the governors. Come on. That's right. That's a good structure. But then the governors use it for something else. So it's about the money, but it's also about the establishment of a system of accountability throughout, so that there cannot be any hanky panky. And I don't think it would be any hanky panky if people were assured that their future is taken care of by the government.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Monroe, um, when we're talking about the government, and we're talking about governors, the governors are they represent the local government.
You froze on me.
Right?
Say again, you froze. Hello?
Why?
You're freezing up, my friend.
You hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Right. So I'm saying the governors that you were referring to that represent the local government. So if education should be funded and through the government, for example, so we're not talking about maybe the private schools, the funding should go to the governors,
Well,
right?
if they're going to use it properly.
Yeah, definitely they should.
Well, it's you don't have any other structure, but again, it's the question of the federal government being able to monitor.
That is right. Okay, that's a good idea. We're not going to focus on Nigeria because they have a federal or government type of system. The other countries, no, just the Ministry of Education or Department of Education. And in some countries like Benin, they have the Ministry of Primary and Elementary School, and then another level is a secondary school, and then the higher ed, three ministry for the educational system. What do you think about that? There are so many ministries of education.
Well, that sounds like a bit much, but evidently they found a way to, uh, I guess, to give employment to a certain sector. The key thing I've found over the years, and we're talking about young countries, and I think that's important to emphasize. Countries that are 60, 70 years old, and the American system has been developing hundreds of years. One of the things is that a greater way of accountability for the education for each child must be put in place. Now, how that occurs, I would leave it to an individual country. But again, just think about it. If you don't know that a child exists, how can you then say you are going to require that they go to school?
Okay, Dr. Monroe, you keep saying if you don't know that the child exists, what is it that you're alluding to?
Well, how do you know that a child is born or exists?
They have birth certificate and the local government is aware of it and they actually issue the birth certificate, so they should know. There must be a kind of registry.
Okay, well, if that registry exists, then that's what you begin to tie your funding to in time. Okay, let's say every child that is between a given age, you begin to put money aside and send it to a given school for the purposes of education.
That is true. That is so interesting as well. Do you see any gap between the state school or public school and private school and in Africa?
Yes, I see. I think the private schools are better.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, they seem to be. Um,
How
and
so?
and depends on who runs the private school, whether it's the church or a businessman. Uh, so I've seen a mixture of them, but again, the ones that I've seen that have been the most effective, really, most of the kids I brought into America got their education in the private sector. And again, that's a reflection of income of parents who've been able to pay the fees and get the uniforms and things of that nature and give them A-level work or whatever they needed to be able to be successful,
Right.
as well as more likely then to be able to help get their kids through the embassies. So I have seen, I would say unequivocally, that most of the kids that I have brought into this country have been from the private sector of education,
Okay.
and it's uh, it's it's just like America. It's the income impact on education.
Okay. Now you talked about earlier on when we're discussing this issue, you talked about transfer of know-how, and that sounds familiar. We also talk about not here, but transfer of technology. I'm very much used to that. And do you remember in the 60s, and most African countries, had what did they call it? Yeah, transfer of technology, also transfer of the so-called experts, in every single field, as if Africans themselves do not have brain, they don't have the know-how, they don't have the technology. If I'm talking about technology, for example, everything, almost everything is in Africa. We're talking about cell phone now. You mentioned cell phone for students to learn, use their cell phones. What goes into making cell phones? This is in Africa, in the Congo and Central Africa.
Yeah,
And we have, even Niger, that they call maybe the poorest country on the face of the earth. They have a lot of things. Guinea, Conakry, even Guinea, Bissau, Guinea, Equatorial Guinea. I mean, all over Africa. We have the human resources. We also have the technology. The potential is there. How come we should keep talking about transfer of something, transfer of something? Can't we, you know, home make something?
well, again, I think, and I've said this, I think the American black position in the United States would be more powerful if we collaborated with Africa.
There you go. There you go.
Now, and when I talk in terms of know how, I think in terms of the end product being technology. Uh, so, what I'm just suggesting is that even the curriculums of certain courses could be borrowed from that's already been developed in another country. You see the heavy influence of Indians in the educational systems of Africa. the curriculums that they're using are from their country. So the real question becomes then, who does a given country want to partner with for its own development? And I contend that you don't need to do a lot of looking outside of the continent, but work together.
Right. Yes.
Work together to take the best from Guinea or wherever and use that.
That is so correct. And I've mentioned it somewhere, at least in a few of my articles, the need to for African Americans to reconnect with Africa. Okay, because I strongly believe that the history of America or the history of Africa is never going to be complete until both histories are put together. So I'm glad you're calling on all African Americans to actually not put Africa in the trash can or in the back burner. They should actually reconnect. And I know a lot of people are reconnecting, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And talking about African Americans reconnecting with Africa, Oprah Winfrey has built a prestigious school in South Africa.
Yeah.
I know you know about that. And more people of African descent are investing in education in Africa. What are your plans in that regard concretely?
Well, my wife and I support an orphanage in Arusha,
And
Tanzania,
yeah.
presently. Also in Kenya, I'm on the board of a school there, and I have made a commitment to the Igbos that I will renovate one of its schools. And so as soon as the pandemic kind of slows down a little bit, I will get engaged at that full time to raise about $100,000 for the renovation and the repairs of a school. So in Kenya and Arusha. Now, interestingly enough, my wife and I went to visit the school one time, and the kids were laying on the floor. And we were able to attract a woman there who had money and was able to build it. And when we went back the last time, they had beds and they had a beautiful facility and so forth. So I'm not as wealthy as Oprah, but what I try to do is to help wherever we can and however we can. You probably remember me bringing the First Lady from South Africa to Shaw.
That's correct.
I have also brought her to Texas, where we raised $100,000 for her foundation one night. So what I have tried to do is to provide as much funding and support of selected institutions. And again, I will do some work in Nigeria,
right,
and hopefully it will be I will kind of retire after that.
Please, before you retire, I know you've mentioned Ghana, you've mentioned Nigeria, South Africa, so on and so forth. Don't forget Benin, don't forget Togo, don't forget Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, and I know you can't do it alone. So,
well, of course, I know Benin and have a commitment to helping. Her name is Madam Nina Kalu.
right.
She runs the International Model School there.
In Benin.
I had hoped to go to Togo. Their elections ran a little longer than I had anticipated, so I didn't get a chance to go. And so I'm committed to as much as I can do humanly.
That is correct.
I'm an old man now. I keep telling you that.
Old in your just in your head. You're not old for me. You're not old. You have fresh ideas. You know, you're young. Your spirit and your ideas are about today and about tomorrow. And I really appreciate that. And what would be your final words if you were to summarize and say something in about 1 minute? What would that be?
Well, I would I would hope that the leadership of the various countries remain enlightened and see the significance of an improved educational system on the economic development of their respective countries and maintain the funding, support the teachers, and keep and reach out to other countries to learn from them rather than going to the UK or France or Germany or wherever to develop their education system. There's some great things going on in the continent that that can be replicated in each country.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Monroe. Thank you for coming to our show, What's Up Africa, Café l'Afrique. Your presentation and your responses to my questions, all of my questions, could not have been more amazing. I really appreciate the responses.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's always good to see you.
No problem, anytime. And we thank you indeed from the bottom of our heart and wish we could find a better way to express our heartfelt and well-deserved gratitude to you, Dr. Monroe. Tempo Africa TV is your TV, and we hope that What's Up Africa will become your favorite show moving forward. So please do not hesitate to come back and share more success stories, not only with us, but also with the entire continent of Africa. Now, let me talk to you, Africans. Africans and people of African descent, Pan-Africans and friends of Tempo Africa TV, you should know that what we're doing is for you, it's for us. This is our business, the business of promoting talents, the business of promoting Africa, the business of showcasing what we have, our strengths. I know we have weaknesses, but let's tap into our talents, what we have, the resources, the human resources, and educate our people to the best of our ability so that the type of education we give them reflects the need of our people. Okay? So like Dr. Monroe, who is involved in innovative projects with the potential to transform lives in Africa, please join us in that effort. Share contacts of anybody who is involved in doing things like Dr. Monroe. Okay, share that with What's Up Africa, Café l'Afrique, via africtv@gmail.com, or simply dial 612-224-2020. Also on WhatsApp. Humbled and privileged to host this weekly show. I'm Professor Desiree Balubi from Norfolk State University in Virginia, USA. Thank you for watching and have a very pleasant spring night.